Rosaline McGinnes knew that her mom's boyfriend's actions were wrong, but the man intimidated her. At just 10 years old, Rosaline was living in Porter, Oklahoma, enduring a horrible situation that later became unbearable. When Rosaline was 12, her mother ended the abusive relationship, and Henry sought revenge. On January 31, 1997, he went to Rosaline's school and kidnapped her at the entrance. Her mother, who at first kept silent for a long time, finally reported her daughter missing. Henry ran away. He didn't kidnap the girl to scare Rosaline's mom. He had no intention of returning the child at all. They traveled to Agoner, Oklahoma, and Henry even married Rosaline in a fake wedding ceremony to let her know that she was now his alone. Henry told Rosaline that her mother didn't want to see her anymore, and actually he continued to rape the little girl, and this went on for several years. They were traveling across the country through the states of Texas, Montana, and Idaho, New Mexico, and Arizona until they tried to hide in Mexico. Henry did everything he could to keep them out of sight and out of recognition. He made Rosaline change her appearance by dyeing her hair and wearing glasses. Henry was cruel, and Rosaline lived in fear of him. She had no idea what he would do to her if she tried to escape. In 2000, Rosaline was only 15 years old when she had her first child from repeated rapes. She then went on to have 8 more children with him. Rosaline was physically and sexually abused on a daily basis, but her children supported her. Henry told the children that they were animals and that they were only alive because Rosaline was there, otherwise he would have killed them. The children suffered from this cruelty. Rosaline took the brunt of his anger to protect her children. Henry regularly beat her with his fists, bat, beer bottles, and wood. She suffered broken bones. Rosaline's children were aware of Henry's abuse, but they had no idea that actually their mother had been kidnapped and was living in captivity. Rosaline, however, never forgot that. When she was 18, Henry forced her to go to a police station in Arizona and tell the officers that she had escaped. Plan was to remove her from the National Missing Persons Registry. Henry had her 3 children in a car parked 3 blocks from the house, and he told her that if she didn't return within 2 hours, she would never see them again. Rosaline felt she had no choice but to do as she was told. Henry eventually relocated Rosaline and the children to another area in Mexico. Their living conditions were deplorable, with their home being a dirty, run-down tent. Henry squandered their money on drugs and alcohol, leaving Rosaline no choice but to beg on the streets to feed her children. Meanwhile, the police continued their search for the missing girl. One day, Henry forced Rosaline back to Oklahoma. He ordered her to write and mail letters to make people believe she was still living in the state. By early 2016, Rosaline was 32 years old. She had lived a nightmare for 2 decades, and her oldest child was 17, and her youngest was only 4 years old. During this period, they pitched their tent in Oaxaca, Mexico. One day, Rosaline went shopping in a supermarket with her children. At that time, her alias was Stephanie, and while they were waiting to pay, Rosaline started chatting to a couple in the queue. The man and woman sensed something was wrong. They noticed that Stephanie had many children who looked thin and emaciated. The age difference between Rosaline and Henry was also very obvious. The man was 62 years old at the time, and the people at the nearby supermarket started asking more questions and found out that Stephanie was only 15 years old when her eldest son was born. When it came time to pay for her purchases at the checkout, the girl didn't have enough money, and the kind couple paid for her. Henry knew the couple realized something was wrong and forced his captive family to move, but the supermarket couple tracked Rosaline down and let her know they would help her escape. They realized that Rosaline was trapped, and they had no idea of the extent of the trap. In July, Rosaline's eldest child left home alone, and when Henry passed out from drinking, Rosaline gathered her remaining 8 children, some belongings, and fled to the couple's house from the supermarket. They were warmly welcomed, and Rosaline told them her whole story. The couple couldn't even find a record on the internet that Rosaline was missing. They helped her find asylum with the US authorities in Mexico. The nightmare might have ended physically, but it will never end mentally. Rosaline's children suffered from the trauma of the 2 past decades, and although they managed to escape, they knew their father was still alive, and Rosaline looked over her shoulder, constantly waiting and fearing him. Usually, the names of victims of sexual offenses are not disclosed, but now that Rosaline was free, she sought more protection by telling her ordeal and giving up her anonymity. Rosaline went public with her entire story and told the world how she was captured, raped, and beaten for years. She shared unimaginable horrors, such as how she first became pregnant at 13 but miscarried, and how Henry once hit her so hard with a frying pan that the wound was deep right down to the bone. Now virtually the whole world knew about the recovered stepfather who had taken the girl from school and brutally stolen 20 years of her life. It took a year before the man was tracked down. He was arrested and charged, but he disagreed with Rosaline's claims and insisted that he had done nothing wrong. "I never raped children," he told the press. "I made love to my wife. We were married." Rosaline was relieved that Henry had finally been taken into custody, but the ordeal wasn't over. In 2019, the case finally went to trial. For 7 days, the court outlined the full horror that Rosaline, who was already 34 years old, had endured. In the end, Henry, who was already in his 60s, was found guilty of kidnapping and intent to have sexual intercourse with a minor. Henry was sentenced to life imprisonment for kidnapping, with an additional 30 years added for sexual intercourse with minors. He was also ordered to pay Rosaline a $50,000 fine and another $50,000 in moral damages. Life imprisonment is the punishment for the most serious offenders, the prosecutor said. For 20 years, he subjected the victim and the children to extreme physical and emotional abuse. For 20 years, she feared for her life and the lives of her children. Unfortunately, horrific memories can last a lifetime, the prosecutor added. Today, Rosaline lives in Missouri with her children, and she is free for the first time since childhood. Unfortunately, Rosaline can't get back the lost years, and Henry has already caused her incalculable pain, but now he is in prison, and she's free, and she will build her life with the same courage and strength that allowed her to escape from the real monster. Thanks for watching. I recommend you to watch other interesting and no less shocking stories. Click right now and subscribe to my channel, put likes, and of course, leave your comments.